Welcome to Brazil, guys! Welcome!
We have to fight through the group stage right now. And we're just gonna come back stronger, so I hope they're just ready, and we'll be looking good, that's for sure.
Les da una falsa confianza de ser los favoritos y creer que van a ganar, pero no saben lo que les espera.
There's nothing that really scares us from them.
Entonces no saben nada, entonces va a ser una sorpresa.
One enemy remaining. Faz a abertura, Xion! 0-0 Nation, 2-0 na série.
Welcome to Brazil, já diríamos, né? Sejam bem-vindos.
It's gonna be tough, but that's a mental battle that we've been preparing for.
A gente está muito confiante. A gente veio para mostrar que o Brasil não é uma região qualquer.
When we win, we'll know we were the favorites and we proved it.
A gente está aqui para provar que o Brasil é a melhor região do mundo.
And welcome to day 2 of VCT Ascension Americas, as again we are trying to find out who our next representative will be in VCT Americas. Welcome to the analyst desk. I'll be your host throughout the day. Joining me on the desk, we've got VCT and M80. I know you guys got to watch some of the action, but we will go ahead and show the groups just so you guys can see at home what transpired yesterday, as we will see the standings. Again, it is important to note, though, Vance, even though teams took losses, every one of these teams moves through into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this is the fun part about it, too, especially when we've seen the results of M80 versus the Union, who played a great game, by the way, for the Union, but it doesn't matter if you even go 0-2. It's not like a repeat history of what happened for the Guard, for example, at the first international LAN, right? So it gives you an opportunity to get rid of the early LAN jitters for a lot of these players in these 6 teams that are playing on LAN, potentially for the first time.
You definitely hit it. That was my first thought when I saw the format. I was like, oh man, this is like basically trying to prevent what happened to the Guard. When they went to Reykjavik, they were a relatively inexperienced team. They'd only been playing together for a few months. They make an international LAN event, and then they go straight to bracket play because the way the format worked, and they got 0-2. They really didn't have much opportunity to play. Now, that Optic game was a lot closer than people probably remember. It was a 3-mapper, and Optic did go on to win, so I guess you could say they lost the best, so at least there's that. But as we take a look at... Yeah, that too. I mean, they didn't lose to any slouch teams. But speaking of non-slouch teams, we'll be starting off our series with a team who has been praised coming into this event. And M80, while they've been strong, maybe just didn't really click yesterday.
Yeah, it wasn't the M80 that we've been watching throughout all splits and playoffs. This is a team that typically has been dominating essentially the entire time that we've been watching them. But I'm confident that they're warmed up now, that today's a new day. They're professionals. They know that they got to go in. That's 0-0, and they're going to come in with a different game plan and be ready for today.
That's it. They definitely didn't look at the M80 that we knew from North America, especially if you want to be like an NA fan and been watching the whole season. Even the conversation around the M80 going into the North American split, they weren't the favorites. It was actually the Guard. These guys are like maybe not necessarily the dark horse, but the one that would be able to compete against the Guard, and then they end up just topping the whole time. And these are some of the tweets that come out of it too. It is, again, the LAN jitters that echoes throughout the tweets that came out from these 5 players following their loss. It's just, you know, even though they played on LAN together as a boot camp throughout the season, online, now you're going into international waters, play against teams that are on their home turf, and at the same time, you're trying to get used to the setups that you're currently sitting at in this studio event in Brazil. So now, hopefully, it looks a little bit better today.
Yeah, and we have to keep in mind they were playing against a Brazilian team who was playing there. They're on their home turf. So as a North American player coming into a completely different environment, I think that's understandable. It's understandable that you need to adjust a little bit to this new environment, essentially. Me as a player, I've dealt with that myself. So that's why I really feel like these tweets, we should take it to heart that they mean it, that now they're warmed up and they're ready for LAN.
And you could see it yesterday, too, just in some of the play. There were things that weren't really working out so well for M80. They were making some minor missteps, and the Union coming in was an incredibly strong team.
Yeah.
I think maybe better than people realized, undefeated coming into this event since Split 2. So they came in and they took advantage of every single mistake that was made. And Vans, you had some you wanted to highlight.
And here's one of them, right? You're looking at round number 18. That smoke that was placed towards A main had a slight little gap. Although you're looking at Rafa here in the POV of Nismo, he's going to do some damage against his opponents and not kill them, but at least those are some of the costly mistakes that were consistently taken advantage of by the Union. This second round, simple protocols. Look at this owl drone. It stays alive the whole run, not to only ping EU to see where he's falling back from, but also Koala Noob. So where's the standard fundamentals of breaking the owl drone, where I think for an M80, they were in their own minds of trying to play the aggression and flood retakes that we usually know the core being good for, right? And even looking at the third one over here, this is not only some sort of like positioning mistakes going out for M80, but it's the Union. Look at Askia here. He doesn't even dash when he activates it, taking advantage of that home turf, the experience and the knowledge of playing in this land environment, masking his footsteps to get the kill onto Nismo. And it has to come down to these heroic plays. Look at the nerdiness on the first place for the Union with the shock dart gravity well combo. You're so lucky for Koala Noob that it didn't fully hit. He was able to updraft out of that, get this kill, and then finally get a 0.2 second defuse in the end. And if it wasn't for these heroic plays from Koala Noob, from John Curie, and even from Xander, I don't think the second map would have been as close.
Yeah, it seems like the Union was doing a really good job on isolating a player back of Shaq. That's what we saw on that A site. Multiple times it was different players that was just being left alone there, even when they had 3 players. So I think if they're going to want to do a better job today, they're either going to have to give up an area so they're not getting isolated, or just being ready to be counter flashed, because that clip that we were just watching, Koala Noob was holding a really good angle, but he got flashed, then he had to leave, and then Nismo was alone on site. So they're just gonna have to improve that a little bit today.
Exactly. And just that last clip, just to chime in on that as well, Emily, is it's that advantage from M80 that we know and love and that we know that they're good at, right? So you give them time to set up, the recon dart comes through, a shock dart from EU, pop flash from Nismo, when boom, instantly 4 players are dead. So a winning condition for me going against a Fusion today, for a Fusion, if you're looking for the underdog story, you kind of have to hope that M80 are continuing these slight little mistakes that they showed yesterday. If not, I think it's a 2-0 here for M80.
And there was other mistakes made in the first map as well. It just seemed like they were really trying to get acclimated. You know, some mollies that don't miss in the post, or missed in the post plants, they just don't hit the spike. Fault lines that are hitting their own teammates and not even hitting the enemy. Just little missteps, things that are producing scenarios that are punishable.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to, happen when you play against a team like the Union. They're not going to just let that mistake go unpunished. So really, it's Fusion's job now to come in and say, okay, if they're going to make those mistakes, we have to make the most of them every single time. We have to punish, because in the rounds when they play the game the way we know they can play, they're scary. But if they keep making those mistakes, that's the window, the door that is open to allow an opponent in the game. And that opponent here is going to be Fusion, who's definitely not a team that I think people were looking at as like a heavy favorite coming into this event. I don't think that they're, maybe a dark horse, but they're certainly a team that I think people are looking in other directions from, which gives them a bit of a benefit. Vans, we've talked about that before, kind of like the underdog storyline and how that can work really nicely. And I would say Fusion here would be an underdog.
Yeah, I do agree. And especially out of the 6 teams, they're probably like the biggest underdog of the story if they can make a story out of their run here. Because yes, they were dominant in their region in Latin America North, but at the same time, when it came down to play against their compatriots from the South in the LatAm finals, that was an 0-3 fashion. And it definitely did look like it's a team that looks good on paper in terms of the firepower that they bring, but when it comes down to the strategies and execution, you're kind of like leveraging a lot around Verdi to hopefully find some opponents as he enters in, and the people following behind will be the ones supporting.
Yeah, we have to keep in mind Fusion's playing M80, and they've probably scrimmed against each other as well. And in my opinion, they have pretty different play styles. Fusion has really good traps in creating and controlling an area. They often like to do 3 or 4 man controls and leave one particular person there and leaving the other team wonder, so they'll have to use util to clear out an area. That's where they're really good, and we saw the maps there. There was a few good maps that they're really strong on, and it was Lotus and Fracture, which has one of their highest percentage win rate.
and also Pearl on top of that. So, and split one for this team for Fusion in their region. Yes, they have a smaller group pool, fewer teams to play against, but they looked really good on that, and not as great on Haven until we got into the second split. They changed their comps around. They came into like overcooking a comp that seems to work in that region where they went 5-0 on that, and even worked out different maps like Bind, for example. So overall within their region, the map pool still looks really deep. I still think that they have 5 good maps out of the 7 pool, but they haven't really had a chance to prove that yet in the international scene, especially again going against the 9Z team where it was very, very one-sided.
Now, when you look at this team, too, I think a lot of people right now, if you were to just pull up numbers, they're probably going to focus on one player, in Verdi. He's basically the koala noob of this team. It's a player that a lot of people want to keep their eyes on. Actually, the number one player, when you just look at ACS coming into this event of all the teams from Split 2 onward, he rounded out about 250 ACS on average, which is pretty strong numbers when you look at all of the maps they've played out. But there were 2 players that we wanted to focus on instead, and that's going to be Meathead and Darker. And what is it about these 2 specifically that we want to look at?
Well, for Meathead, this is a very versatile player in my opinion. He's played multiple agents on different maps: Killjoy, Brim, Sage, Reyna. It's kind of all over the place, but in particularly, when I watch Meathead play, I notice that he's really good at being a second entry or even repositioning to where he can re-wrap around and make the other team wonder, where did he go? And then we'll see him get multiple kills because they're wondering where he went. So he does a really good job on that particular role.
Yeah, and both of them actually being Darker and Meathead in their region again for Latin America North. Their clutch percentage is actually quite high. And the reason why I talked about like these overcooked strats is the Fusion team in itself, what has been cooked up with Kamikaze as the coach, has revolved a lot around not really trying to combine like scan utility with flashes, but basically using Verdi as the drone himself. So either it's a neon slide, either it's a jet dash, either it's a ray double satchel charge. He's the one that's trying to find the information and hopefully gets his one. And following behind that will be the Meathead playing as a Sage, for example, because after you slow wherever you need it to go, you have to be that second entry fragger. The rest of that team is still throwing utility, smokes, fault lines, and even Viper snake bites, right? So you need somebody like Meathead to really step up and help out, and then Darker is going to be your clutch player, the one that's going to put the nail in the coffin, and that actually will help a team survive, such as Fusion in tight-knit situations, right? So we're hoping to see that shine against a team like M80, where again, it's going to be very, very difficult, and you're still hoping for, you know, those inconsistencies and those mistakes from M80 to shine, or to show.
And again, the top 2 players for KD coming into this event, Meathead and Darker. They're actually number 1 and number 2 respectively. I think Darker's top 3 for KPR as well, right up there with Verdi. Their first kill percentages are all actually relatively healthy, even though they don't all necessarily play roles that they should be taking first fights. The point is, this team is maybe a little bit more powerful than it might appear, and I think a lot of people write them off simply because they play in a region that maybe doesn't get the limelight the same way that the North American region gets. I think a lot of people throughout the year are staring at NA Challengers because they're thinking, look at all the talent that was left on the board. That was always the dialogue. You've got teams like the Guard, you've got FaZe, you've got M80, you've got G2, you've got all of these teams who some people looked at the players at least on the team and thought that player could have been in VCT. That player could have been a partnership player. And some of them almost were. You know, we'll talk about that later when we talk about the Guard. But the fact is, these other regions, there's still so much talent left to be farmed.
Exactly.
And even though we haven't seen a lot from this team and we don't really have high expectations thinking like this team's a heavy favorite, that's not to say these teams are teams you should doubt whatsoever.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that too, I think it's the same thing that we're currently seeing for like the VCTs itself in partnership. Like if you're looking at certain regions, you might say one region is top heavy with Fnatic and Liquid. The other ones are kind of close. Then you look at Pacific, it's going to be T1, DRX, and also PaperX, and the rest are like falling behind but catching up. But then in Americas, everybody's always really, really close. But when it comes down to that one single team in that region that's strong, they are strong as hell, and they can actually just storm through any type of teams whatsoever when they're playing in these head-to-heads in this partnership league. So I think that you have the very similar storyline when it comes down to Challengers and Ascension as well. If it's that single one team, for example, the Union, that dominating team in that region, well, the results just proves for itself yesterday with what they've shown against M80.
Yeah, and we have to think Fusion is going up against M80, who again has just been so dominating when we've been watching them. So what are they going to do today to beat M80? What do they have to be prepared for? And I think, in my opinion, they're going to have to be ready for M80's constant flooding.
Yes.
They love flooding the sites. They love isolating one person. They love to overwhelm and make you feel completely uncomfortable. I've even seen them push all the way to spawn, for example, on Ascent. Like, they will go for you. So Fusion will have to be ready for that if they want to take this win.
Yeah.
But also maybe be cautious of their very explosive plays that M80 loves to do on their defense side.
Yeah.
That's what I really want to see from M80. That's what we loved about the Ghost Gaming Core when we got to see them play in VCT last year. They had these really cool aggressive set pieces, looking at a lot of fade raise combos, even chiming in with a little bit of Astra utilization as well to really make the best out of the early round situations. And we started to see that from them in the playoffs for the first time. We hadn't really seen M80 do much of that because they didn't need to. I think they largely coasted off the fact that they were just a better team and they didn't need to kind of expand on their playbook. Once they got to a point where it really mattered, like now, they started to show us a little bit more of what they've been working on, a little bit more of that tactical depth, and that's what I'd like to see today. I don't really feel like we got a chance to see it too much yesterday. A large part of that was the map pools that they played. It doesn't really work to that advantage. Fracture being a four corners map, a quadrant map, whatever you want to call it, it's not really going to play the same way as some other maps will. Yeah. Where we can really see them take advantage of that.
But see, that's again, I don't want to sell it short onto the victor of what the Union brought.
Oh no,
against
absolutely not.
Year, right? Because consistently we've seen in that series the amount of times that the Union were playing just outside or inside of a smoke and punished M80 every time they tried to flood back in a site. And it comes down to, when you're trying to flood back from M80, you're flooding back again with only maybe 3 or 4 players because you always lost one very early. The Union came in very prepared into how they wanted to work the map around M80's tendencies. Emily, you talked about the nice aggression and the floods that you want to take in the beginning of the map on defense here for M80. What does that bring then for Union, right? It's a window of opportunity for somebody like Punk to actually flank behind enemy lines and actually get these type of victories that turns around over in favor of the Union. The first 2 or 3 rounds had a flank from Askia and also from Puck, from pistol round to second round to get the backstab kills on B side post plan. And those are some of the things that now M80 have to correct.
Well, we did have a chance to talk to players. Maybe we'll get some insight on what went down yesterday with M80. Let's take a look.
Obviously, it's really important for us to win this game. Group stage matters a lot as you get a bye in playoffs. But we're just going to come in and play our game, use the group stage as an experience for us, and just get ready for playoffs.
Bueno, nosotros sabemos que M80 es el favorito de toda la gente, pero nosotros no tenemos miedo de nada. Los conocemos muy bien porque entrenamos contra ellos. Sabemos exactamente cómo juegan, qué hacen, sus fortalezas y sus debilidades.
We did scrim them a couple times, so we kind of have an idea of what their game style is. But we're just going to come in and play our game, and there's nothing that really scares us from them.
Ellos no saben de nosotros estuvimos casi un mes fuera, cambiando todo, entrenando cosas nuevas. Entonces no saben nada. Entonces va a ser una sorpresa.
Obviously, we're very confident. I do think we're the best Tier 2 team in North America, in my opinion. Even though we lost against the Union, again, this is more a learning curve. We are going to come in very strong versus the Fusion. And yeah, I hope they're just ready, and we'll be looking good, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, you kind of heard it. We've practiced this team. We know what to expect. And Meathead says, no, they don't. They have no idea what to expect. We've kind of disappeared for a month. We've been hiding in the shadows, lurking and waiting for our chance to strike. And now is that opportunity as they try to kick off their group stage with a victory. Now, when you look at these two teams, obviously we want to take a look at the map pool, see where this series is going to head, because we talked about it kind of in the preface of this match. The map pool for M80 is pretty strong, but the map pool for Fusion maybe has some holes in it. Vans, I feel like, you know, M80 maybe has a slight leg up in the map pool, in that some of the maps that Fusion is strong on, M80 is a little bit stronger on.
Yeah, I still want to continue along and piggyback around the underdog story of what Meathead was saying, right? Yes, they are scrim partners. There are some tendencies that could be learned, but if there's not too much that's being changed around here for M80, and which, by the way, they haven't done too much. If you look at their composition on Pearl when they came back, it was something that they already used in the past during the North American scene in Challengers. So when you're looking at this map pool and the vetoes that we currently see, Fusion Esports probably has a good tell and a good read on how M80 plays, whereas, for example, if you're looking at what we have for Haven as the decider, if we get to that for Fusion Esports, that's the revamp that Meathead was talking about. They completely revamped the way that they approach the map from agent composition and to the flood retakes that's very similar to what M80 does, but just with different kits.
I have to say, looking at these map picks, Fracture is a really good map pick for Fusion, in my opinion. Like you were saying, Vance, that they know what they're doing. There's so much content and VODs out there of their game plan. Like we were saying, we all know how they play. So Fusion's going to be ready for Fracture. But looking at the second map, which I believe was Lotus. Lotus is going to be interesting because both teams have a pretty good Lotus, in my opinion. So I'm not sure how that map is going to turn about.
Yeah, and if nothing changes for how for the composition for Lotus over at M80, that's like the Raze Fade and the Omen, right? And again, it comes down to the triple aggression that Emily was pointing out earlier on, presenting this team. That is already something that could be a tell of how you want to control that map. And I'm hoping to see something very, very, not necessarily different from M80 in terms of agent composition, but how you want to iron out and reapproach. Like, look at that. Fusion Fracture notes right on the paper there of Happy. So there are some things that are being learned. There's not too much tape that you're able to see on Fracture if you're looking at Fusion Esports versus, for example, 9Z and the LatNam Finals, because that was already a 13-2 scoreline for 9Z. All right, so there's that surprise factor that if you've learned from your mistakes and you still want to pick into Fracture versus what you've seen from M80's performances yesterday versus the Union, then you have a chance now for a Fusion, happy as they are right now, looking confident, in my opinion, for the first match.
We got a little bit of intel. I'm curious. I was like literally inches from my monitor. I could taste the pixels. I was like, what does he have on this piece of paper? And I could see some ideas of what he was thinking with the agent select. But because, like we said, some of these teams, they've been making changes coming into this event, and if anyone was going to do it, it's Fusion, and they've kind of alluded to that. They've been working a lot in the background. They've been in the lab, kind of cooking some things up, and I'm curious to see what it is they're actually going to cook up. We can get a better appreciation for the map picks and bans now as well, because we can see the order, which is always nice. Yeah. That first pick, the first ban of Split was maybe a little bit more surprising for me. That was a map that this team specifically has, obviously, they've banned in the past. Yeah. But the fact that it was actually a first ban coming through maybe was a little bit more peculiar, because it's been a third ban, and they've even floated it multiple times. They've played it 3 times, despite the fact that they've second banned it. But I think the fact is, you know, this map pool being what it is, I think, Vance, you and I had kind of predicted it, and Em, you might agree as well. We kind of knew we were going to get Fracture, Lotus, and Haven. It was just a matter of order.
Yeah. And just to tie in before here, Emily, as you take over, just to tie in on that split pick, or the split ban rather, I do agree. But I think, again, this is a map that was good here for Fusion on split 1 in terms of LatNam North, right? So they were okay picking it, floating it, depending who they played against. But when it came down to split 2, they were losing a lot of those games versus 6 Karma, or Karma 6, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry if I'm mistaken the name. 6 Karma. You had it right. So when it comes down to that, of a team that has to revamp their composition or approach on different maps, for example, reworking their Haven a lot, then it comes down to what Boaster was mentioning before, right? The tendencies of being IGL and how frustrating it could be, because you're working to develop your map pool, and when you think you're comfortable on one map, okay, let's develop the other one, but what falls behind? The map that you were strong on in the first place. And then that's where they started losing, and why they want to ban it, and why I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and the bind ban was not a surprise at all from M80. They haven't played it at well. So Haven's going to be interesting as the third map because M80 is so good at it. But looking at the agents, the agent comp that we have here of Fracture, do you guys see any surprising picks here?
Not at all. Not at all. I think when I'm looking at this too, it's probably a reason why Fusion Esports wants to pick into this map against M80, because I still feel that the kit is missing here by having the jet out instead of a raise. It's almost like a semi-evil geniuses, but the drone that you're missing from the boombot and also the nades for the retake and the showstopper, the clear sight, it's just a big missing factor in terms of how you want to full execute and retake for this team, and that's why the responsibility has to be huge for Qualinute.
Jet has been a popular agent in North America. We'll see if it ends up working out well for M80 here, as is the differentiating factor. Our casters are standing by to jump us into map number 1. We've got Sully and Upmind in high 5 distance. Take it away.
And high 5 distance, yeah, we are just right here right now. I find it funny that Fusion were like kind of hyping themselves up, like, yeah, we went ghost, we went off the grid for about a month, and then they just didn't change their comp at all. Like, and the desk was talking about this like no drone, no scan composition they were running for, but they don't change anything at all. They still run the fades. So I think we're gonna see a couple of nice set pieces from Fusion, especially on this map of Fracture, a map they are extremely well drilled on, Gus.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of success from Fusion on this map, but also, of course, from M80. But again, the desk was saying no scan, but we have the fade still for this team.
And this was the map that we saw M80 end up losing out on just the other day. Actually, not even the other day. Literally like 12 hours ago, essentially. And for M80 to come back into this map, we'll see what changes they've elected to make. Fusion, a very slow-paced offensive team, but dude just gets caught on the rope off of the aggression from M80.
Still a lot more to go. Fusion. Only at the very beginning of A main. M80 have a whole lot of utility in the middle of this A site, but again, with these smokes, with this sort of positioning, the only thing they can do is contact and run away. John QT is playing his life, though. Xander and John QT peek out. They pick up 2. That's pretty much the cut down that M80 pretty much need to win the round.
Spike planted.
And a 2 versus 5. This one seems a little bit undoable. Qualinute getting pressed. He does find Meted and puts it on to just Theory, unfortunately, alone, who will ultimately be overwhelmed here. M80 should pick up the pistol against a Fusion team that in their LATAM region were extremely dominant in the pistol round win rate. They had 62% throughout all of Challengers and had been a very formidable force with their kind of methodical map control default style. And in pistol rounds where you're not going to have that crazy bit of util, that kind of control definitely helps a lot. But Fusion won't pick it up this time around. M80 land jitters, not apparent here in the first round, that's for sure.
Yeah, but that was the theme yesterday, at least if you were looking at twitter.com, looking at M80 and everything that they were posting yesterday.
It's like a 600 view right now, so that kind of sucks.
If you can see it. Nah, I mean, we saw pretty much everyone from M80 mention something about the LAN environment, mention something about the unfamiliarity, and I mean, it's what we were talking about with the Guard and their first international piece of experience. The Guard, they came into a high-pressure situation. M80, however, they can actually go through group stage.
Yeah, and for sure, this game will only go the way of Fusion. I think the desk was kind of a unanimous agreement that if M80 make those mistakes and Fusion can capitalize them. Again, these two teams are pretty familiar with one another. And this map of Fracture, definitely not one that M80 are necessarily fully comfortable with. I think going against that Union aggression, they weren't able to deal with those 4 different lanes that were coming at them. Fusion have elected to just take 1 lane onto the B side this time.
Terminated.
And it works out for now, but a kill coming back, and John QT, an opportunity to really rack up the points. Qualinute instead does the same, picking up 2. And Manny just cleaned up the round that they so absolutely needed. But again, Fusion are going to come out into this attacking round, and we really need to see, again, that spread attack from Fusion. They've been packed up, like the desk said, kind of proving that mentality.
Just off the bat in that second round, you see a good bit of util. This fault line coming in to assist John QT. He finds a double. Probably could have had 3 here if he had a couple extra, like maybe a half a second more, but nice sheriff shot there from Darker. So M80 looking definitely a little bit more refined than these first 2 rounds. And again, I feel this is a team that, you know, kind of always needs a map or 2 to warm up, and we definitely saw that yesterday. So we'll see and keep an eye, kind of just a temperature check on how they're feeling and how they're looking mentally.
Fusion, at least inching in now, but this is all off the back of the fact that M80, they already have their number.
and there isn't a single bit of KJ util to stop them on this A main flank. Theory's kind of caught dead in the water at this point in
Triple
time.
flank. It's gonna be Theory in the front side to try to cut it off, and he's gone. Everyone else from Fusion essentially scrambling now. They can't force their way out into Dish. It's too dangerous.
And that will cue the rotate over towards the B site. They recognize that B main push, and it took them a little bit to recognize what was going on, but they will ultimately make this rotation. Fusion, it'd be pretty good to get this spike down and put it on a 4 versus 5. Now, this is where M80 struggled yesterday against the Union. They would play these retakes, but they would literally give them like 15 seconds to set up, and that's what they're doing here for Fusion.
It's gonna be Meathead alongside Verdi. Verdi and Meathead can't do anything. Koala Noob snags them both down, and now it's Edu Darker. Edu around the corner wasn't able to get any trades off of that. And Darker instead is the only one with kills into the round. M80, again, we said that potentially they could struggle on this retake, but they made it look easy.
And the funny thing is that we got to see the fracture notes against Fusion, right? He had Happy had literally prepped every single map, I bet. And they were prepared for a Fusion pushing that defender spawn. I mean, Fusion definitely like to play this kind of pack style where they'll push together and go for plays like this, but this one felt a little uncoordinated, right? No assist util. You saw a double flash from Darker in the back side, and stun as well, I imagine. So to go dry swinging like that felt a little bit risky, maybe even mistimed as well. It'll be a strong start here for M80 as they open up 3-0, and winning that bonus will put the ult economy in their favor here. You can see in the bottom left, John QT very close, same thing with Xander.
And Fusion, they did have to change up their initial take just a little bit more. They do send out at least a little bit of util over towards the choke point, but they're under for the lockdown.
And there's aggression here from M80 once more, but there's no KJ util to give them this Q. You've just got Meathead watching the flank.
And Meathead snags down the first. Still a little bit more to go, but that aftershock is gonna drag him away from that angle, and that's a great flash. Flash in from Darker, and it's Meathead. Finally, the support that we were asking for.
And Nismo certainly had to be careful there. They've even gotten the spike down in the meantime with that double engagement. That's a 5 versus 3 and 2 rifles. Actually, I think one of them fell off the map, so if it's not 2 rifles.
There's a big defensive hold here from M80, but Fusion, they're so far out and away from this site. They can still chip away at the kills, though. Only 2 more to go. What a shot from Birdie. EU puts himself all the way out in the open, and it's all over. M80, they give up a thrifty.
Massive shots from Meathead. Finding the isolated fight back towards attacking spawn. That was a huge 2-man engagement to have, and Koala Noob kind of fighting by himself initially as Meathead just around the corner. And it's interesting because this KJ util really isn't watching much, so these Fusion players seem to be pretty wary after these first 3 or so rounds of this M80 aggression. And winning those 2 fights, just dwindling down the numbers of M80. You could see those 3 players on the B site weren't contesting whatsoever because they were prepared for that 2-man flank to make something happen.
Still very similar to yesterday, though. M80 on the defensive side put on a lot of pressure for ultimates. However, Koala Noob pushing down Verdi. Verdi is gone. Theory tried to help out. M80 shocking Fusion. This is a big gun round for Fusion.
Some pretty big trades as well. Xander close enough to get an orbital strike in. As these players from Fusion will start to approach the B site, just Nismo.
Nismo holds down 1, has a whole lot more to go, but the orbital strike is certainly going to help. It could have delayed just a little bit, but Xander's now got the angle instead. A 1v1 now left for John QT after a great swing from Meathead and Edu. But John QT finds the angle and takes down Edu. M80 again did sweat a little bit, but they continue their way forward.
Yeah, such a close round to come down to a 1 versus 1. You have 3 ultimates that you had working with you, right? The orbital strike just got used, but for EU to swing and fight with his Hunter's Fury when he could essentially completely deny this spike plant, it's just felt like maybe a slight unnecessary risk from M80, and those land jitters I don't think are fully gone. Again, a temperature check on that as we continue up in this matchup. But Fusion, that 1v1 if Edu gets it, that would reset M80 in this position. They keep 1 player alive. I think we just saw the op get pulled out from Koala Noob.
Koala Noob's gonna hold up solo in A-main. Theory! I don't know where that comes from Theory, but Theory pulls it off, and now there's still 1 more here on site. It was EU, actually. The Hunter's Fury all the way from spawn, sweeping away 1.
Really good response. Not even just to get the tags, to prevent them from pushing into defender spawn. You keep John QT alive after that Rolling Thunder comes in.
The lockdown alongside the Rolling Thunder. What a dangerous, dangerous combo. But the Orbital Strike should be able to either take away that lockdown or make some space for these attackers.
That's such a good lockdown. That will force Fusion's hand. They have to fight this.
Surely they're tempted to swing it, but the Orbital Strike is going to cover it up like I mentioned. But this is giving, again, M80 a lot of space to work with. They finally take down Darker. Still 3 more to work with. Every single one of these Fusion players are back over towards A main. It's EU. EU breaks open first. Alarm bot in his face, and he hasn't triggered it just yet. The 2 players from M80, they could actually cleanly get into sight, but never mind. It's the Molly lineup coming in from Meathead, but they can go for it now. Meathead now has the angle, needs to nail the shots, but it's John QT who holds it down and gives M80 a 5th.
Some pretty massive fights in towards A main. A great read from M80 in this retake because they understood where these players are going to be posted up. And there was a fight from EU just like popping open that door, not overcommitting to that fight because you know if he dies, there's 3 players that will swing in towards A main, just making that watch happen. And Fusion, well, they had all the post play on util, but I think Meathead just a little bit far away with that operator and a great shot from John QT. And M80 looking a lot cleaner when it comes to these retakes. It was something that they struggled on yesterday against the Union with only 18% win rate compared to a vet, or when they were entering the vet, they had 35%. So we've had 3 successful retakes so far in 6 rounds. As Fusion once again will be looking to aggressively take this dish. And once again, Theory getting caught off guard. That's multiple times M80 are finding that kill.
Theory could have had a big round. Instead he goes down. Big shot coming in again. This time it's John QT on the off. A little bit of a different look, but Xander, he gets humbled immediately. Would have flicked Darker. John QT, however, returns the favor. Rolling Thunder now goes in. Now it leaves everyone shook here for Fusion. Edu, last one under 1v4, and Koala Noob swings on in and swings on out with a W.
Yeah, he's certainly looking good at Koala Noob. He had a lot of great moments yesterday against the Union. Des was talking about it, Van spoke about it. If it hadn't been those individual plays on Pearl, even individual plays on Fracture, that series, that first map could have been a blowout. And that second map definitely would not have been that close. But plays like this, Koala Noob, but he's got confidence as well. He's definitely a player, and you know, I know him personally. It's when he is hitting shots like this is when you'll start to see him take more risky plays. And I think that round was a perfect example of it, just swinging through smokes. Fusion, on the other hand, doing pretty similar fashion. Edu kind of going, I think, a little bit too deep on that sand swing. Overheating just a little bit. So Fusion will take the first time out of this series. 2 teams that are very familiar with one another. We're not seeing a lot of switch-ups from Fusion like that interview was talking about from Meathead.
Yeah, not at all, really. I mean, we haven't really seen any sort of a slower discipline look from M80. Anytime they are going for any of these takes, they do have a very solid idea of what they're doing. But you mentioned a key word. Overheating is one that a lot of it's been a theme for this team in the last few months, Fusion. Theory is usually the one to really calm his team down. He's really the one to be the voice of reason. When Meathead is supposed to be the IGL, it's Theory holding him back in terms of the comms, but him pulling off a mistake like that, I don't know who can keep Theory in track.
We head back into it. We'll see what changes Fusion will elect to make. The ult cycle starting to come online. They're pretty close to the lockdown, not too far away from that Rolling Thunder and Orbital Strike. So some big ultimates after this round will certainly come into play. But once again, M80 a lot sharper, especially in these retakes. Again, yesterday it was given way too much time for a team that was as strong as Union to set up in post plans. This time, they're a little bit quicker to the action in a lot of instances and definitely taking a lot more aggressive fights, something that they felt scared to do yesterday. This time, they seem to be in their element with that kind of coordination. You can see here again a push towards Dish to get control off of a KJ setup on B.
Again, there hasn't been really much resistance on these retakes for Fusion, even though, again, we usually see a little bit more of an aggressive look going into the back of these sites. Players like Verdi, players like Darker are the ones that especially exploit deep utility. First choke point that the defense can actually come out of. This round, it's
walk into the KJ setup here. The alarm on double nanoswarm with now 3 players here. And look at Koala, he's caught like 2 kills of players going on the road looking for another.
Almost catching the players under. I do. Let's have the fade ulti to at least get some of this very unknown site cleared up. Again, not a single person from M80 currently peeking on this B site. finally Nismo does give out a bit of a look, and he immediately takes back a shot. Everyone else from Fusion, all they can really do is follow in suit, but oh my goodness, Verdi. Koalanu missing his shot and misses out on the first pump, but does collect the second. But Meathead, where does he get that angle? Taking down the one, Koalanu having to come back. Same thing with Xander. Edu now stuck in a 1v2. And just a bit dramatic for Fusion. M80 do come out of it though.
Now we'll see the ultimates for both of these sides, what Fusion will have and what M80 will have. And there you have it, a lot of ults coming online here. The Orbital Strike now put within one, same thing with the Rolling Thunder. Lockdown there as well. So ults will be used in this round, and this is probably the round that Fusion were prepping for. Off of that tactical timeout to figure out what they wanted to do, how they wanted to set themselves up. They have a lot of nice set pieces, and you can do a lot of cool things on Fracture, especially if you have that Rolling Thunder and like lockdown combination. Even with that Orbital Strike, those are three major ultimates that we'll probably see get used here.
Oh, it's gonna be a combo. Koalanu gets the first peek. There's a stun right behind him to cover up the lane.
Strike, maybe.
And Nismo's still holding it. This is actually a great hold. But oh, he goes right into the peak with the stun. Koalanu might be a little bit on his lonesome here. EU is over towards Dish, but Fusion, they opt to actually go out immediately. The rotation from M80 has maybe allowed a lane for Fusion.
An Orbital Strike here as well. It could be a contact here off the turret in a second to buy time for John QT. Yeah, he's got it primed.
No lockdown being utilized by Theory right now. Orbital Strike is just going to hold them back. Shot does come back for Koalanu. John QT is still here.
Yeah, but they're going to reset here. Like you mentioned, they didn't use the lockdown then. They baited out that Orbital Strike. That was really well played here by Fusion.
And Meathead still has an Orbital Strike if they can get the info. That's the whole thing. They need the info at the moment. Lockdown gonna go in. There's gonna be players coming in from Arcade and coming in from Spawn, but Fusion are safely in sight.
But look at this retake position. M80 will still have control of tower, so John QT can get back up here, and this becomes a little bit more difficult. They know they're gonna have to press these players. Meathead's got that Orbital Strike, and Theory's looking for anyone pushing under tunnel. This is a tricky round for M80 to go about just because of this ultimate.
And there goes the Molly to delay even more.
So yeah, we've got a nade from Verdi as well.
Yeah, they're gonna wait. They're gonna wait quite a bit. Again, like you said, Verdi has the nade. There goes finally the peak. Everyone from M80 needs to fight here, and the Orbital Strike is gonna delay even more. It's pretty much victory formation here for Fusion, as Koalanu and John QT can't do anything, and they even pull out the showstopper, which may come back to bite them in a round or two, but Fusion does take back one.
Such a great round from Fusion, like a perfect example of how good this mid-round calling is from them. First, they put like very heavy aggression towards A. They find that first pick, even commit a Nightfall, by the way, pushing Koalanu off of that angle and kind of sending this entire team scrambling on the M80 side, and to very quickly pivot, bait out that Orbital Strike. The ult awareness from Fusion that round was absolutely perfect to get their second. And yeah, that tactical timeout, playing that kind of ult economy in their mind, worked out extremely well.
Now it's M80 with the advantage. They have the Hunter's Fury, but look at this battle from Fusion. Koalanu has the knives out, and he's looking for something quick. Out immediately, it's Nismo. Xander, EU! 4 players contributing to the B main push, and Fusion falls apart for it.
And we didn't get to see a lot of cool set pieces from M80 yesterday. I think it's because of that crazy tempo that the Union brought, but that was something out of the strat book of Happy for sure. A stun, Hunter's Fury to either force players into Koalanu and the swinging players, or to force them back and to give them so much tree control. And it works perfectly. You get a double from the Vandals and then one off the Hunter's Fury. It's a textbook play from M80 that we saw a slight sample of during their Challengers playoff run, and we were expecting to see a lot more of it here in Ascension. Fusion reset. They will have a Rolling Thunder and 2 Guardians. We've seen them win rounds and use ultimates where they get just 1 or 2 picks.
Gonna be Koalanu up on the front side.
Here.
And Rolling Thunder. And like you said, Nismo stunned up, but he might just be fine by the time the peak comes in, and indeed he's alive. That dude does get the trade back, but now it's a 3v3. Xander cutting it down to only 2, but he does get traded back immediately. Lockdown is in here for John QT. Meathead alongside Theory both have Molly still. This positioning here from EU, though, might be insane.
He'll have space because of this lockdown.
Oh, and they hear him. EU.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Double shocks coming in. No way. Meathead peeks in. Shocks EU. And now it's all on John QT. John QT, he's been a leader. Can he actually lead them to success? No, John QT goes down to Meathead, and Meathead, he holds the crown for the round. A huge peak.
A second Eco round 1 in this one. It's 2 rounds that they've won just off of ecos. That 4th round, they won off of their eco after losing the M80's bonus, and then they win it here again. So they've actually only had one successful rifle round at this point in time. It was off of a really nice triple ult setup here. An M80 team looking a lot more refined, but this was a really nice round here from Fusion, committing that ultimate, and they've been looking really good in fighting together in these eco rounds. Like a nice sheriff shot from Theory opens things up, gives them these rifles, and now M80 in this last round will again do that nice set piece, but this time no Hunter's Fury.
Oh, Koala Noob still going in for the same peak, doesn't have the knives, and only gets a little bit of damage. I mean, barely. Instead, he takes on a lot of damage. Nismo goes down in Theory.
Whose flash was that? That was an insane flash from Darker.
And again, we were asking for that earlier. Darker coming up huge with multiple flashes just for one individual teammate to go big. This time it's Theory. John QT and Xander pretty much. Chances are completely dwindled, but we're looking at the last round of the half. Meathead and Theory one away from their ultis. But John QT starts it off right. Still a lot more work to do. One player on site. Could have been the opportunity here for M80 if Xander was able to get that 1 kill. But oh, okay. John QT in a bit of a firing range, shows off a showcase, but that's all that we could say for the first half. Fusion, at least pick up 4, but like you said, Sully, half of them coming off of thrifties.
2 rounds being ecos. They had only 2 successful rifle rounds. That last one being included with the ult combination round. But this was a Fusion team that, honestly, again, a lot of people probably not expecting them to be as strong as the GOATs of NA, if you will, M80, but they have certainly shown some promise. But the question is, now on the defensive side, does that success hold up? The attacking side, again, probably where you'll see a lot more success, specifically on this map, because they love to do those 5-mans. In M80, we saw struggle yesterday against that kind of play style. It'll be the defense here for Fusion now to try and make a comeback happen, as M80 already early on 5-manning into this A site, but the KJ setup is already prepared for this. You've got a Nanostorm at the front.
It's layered.
And one over towards the common plant spot of these pistol rounds.
Now, it's going to take them quite a bit for them to actually go on, but they actually burst up the first Nanoswarm. This is actually allowing them to get on. Use Theory. Theory can't do anything. Edu.
They don't check. Are you kidding me?
He's waiting. Edu. It's all on him. And he goes down. Can't get a single kill to try to bring back the round for Fusion. Instead of 2-man advantage.
Really, really nice play. It could have been had there by Edu, but he doesn't find anything. And now, similar to the first round, puts it onto a 5 versus 3.
Xander's gonna have the first angle. They do have the rotation already coming in over towards Dish. They've spotted Xander first, like you mentioned. But they also spot another player, John QT, coming up from behind. And he execute on his spot. Birdie, Darker, last 2 remaining, try to cross their way into sight, and it's basically impossible. This is a good setup coming in from M80. They even had a molly to cover up, and a stun into to try to cover up Darker. M80, all a part of the plan.
And this is really, really looking strong from Mandy. This is just such a nice side exec, that aftershock clearing both top and bottom. I will say the only mishap was not clearing that one right corner, but otherwise that pistol round exec looking flawless. Nismo setting up with some beautiful util to get them into sight. The stun here onto Edu, and that aftershock to force the top player off of sight. But now Fusion are kind of in a very tricky spot after losing that round. 9-4, possibly a 10th here from M80. They'll have such dominant control over this map. And Fusion might have to call an early timeout if they can't win the next round. And I don't think they'll win this one just with their pistols. I say that, but they've also won so far half of their rounds from thrifties.
Yeah, but again, that next gun round is going to be so important. Fusion lose that one. M80 found a red carpet. Not only to 11, they can go all the way up to 12.
Oh, okay.
That's a great start.
Yeah, for Theory. Onto John QT, looking to again do another dish lurk, see if he can get an ult orb.
And everyone else from Fusion on the B side of the map, they're actually reading this out.
They're feeding ult orbs here, though, to Xander. They're prioritizing this ult play.
It's going to work out.
On a map with 4 ult orbs, you can get all of them, essentially, on these anti-ecos.
Great call.
They'll feed Xander this next orb here as well. Theory is just full cleared, and he will check B main. I think the timing here is in the favor of M80, though, for making this A hit work.
Right here.
No one's going to hear this orb either.
They don't grab it, yeah. They just want to walk in contact.
Very interesting.
Launching smoke. Stim beacon down.
Very safe. Cuts down on the time that potentially
30
someone could
seconds
react. Very safe from M80. Consider the fact that, again, they're only facing up against pistols. All 5 from Fusion. Backing up from the B side. Theory is the closest one, of course. He's been over back towards the attacker spawn, and he does it
so
again.
scared.
A second shot for Theory.
And now they'll start to compress in towards A main. These last 3 players are here. Theory's just trying
Everyone
to
is
bait them
here.
in. That's such a great fall line from Darker.
One enemy remaining.
All 3 are here. Meathead gets another one, and Xander is gone. Systematic from Fusion is 1 by 1. M80 gave him the kills.
Just what team do you know that has 60% of their rounds in a map coming from
Thrifty.
Thrifties? That's the 3rd Thrifty that Fusion have had so far. And M80 giving up 1v1s, 1 to Theory against John QT, and another one from Quanoob. As Theory just picking them apart with his sheriff. He was also instrumental in the first 2 Thrifty rounds that they ended up winning.
One enemy
And this fault line from Darker, Theory just sucking them in towards him. Wins them that final 3 versus 3 over towards A main. And Fusion will certainly remain in this map here with that round win, resetting M80. They're going for a hero rifle from John QT, who did elect to use a pistol in the last round. But Fusion now in control of at least this second half. Nader does have the orbital strike, at least for the time being, to try and set something up.
Oh, this is so quick from M80. Why Qualinoob's just straight up going for the plant in the middle of the smoke? That was a touchdown Hail Mary play, to say the least. And now the crossfire comes into play for Fusion. Theory gets one. Birdie getting another one, but EU, his head on a swivel. He's actually equalized the round. Adu looking to cut it back. Darker doing the same. This Aldrone is going to be massive. Can he get a kill here off of this? EU almost bringing it back all on his own.
Some pretty nice util there at the end as well. The fault line and the C's to show respect to a player of his caliber. But M80 really going for that Hail Mary play onto that B site. Just Quanoob making such a risky dash, but this util layer from Fusion is really nice. The Brimstone Molly coming out to do a little bit of chip damage, the smoke and player swinging, and very well timed as well. This Fusion defense typically isn't one that is super aggressive. And so we'll see probably a lot more pop plays like that from M80. You'll see the response from Fusion and how quick they are to react with util. And especially with this composition, we have so much util you can layer one after the other. The Raze nade, the Nano Swarms from Theory, and certainly the C's. Medu will definitely be very pivotal. They're even playing retake early on this. They said, yeah, you can see they're not really vying for any aggression whatsoever here.
Lots of ways to react, but once again, M80 pulling off yet another quick take just to get their players into position as quickly as possible. And Qualinoobs takes full advantage of the dynamic.
Have the orbital strike from Xander and his Molly as well. So Fusion will have to work against the util comp that they themselves used in the last half and see what they can do. You've got an EU lurk that's a little bit late, but he could definitely be very, very big. Watch the same main fight here.
Yeah, it's going to be triple coming out from Sands, but again, 2 players over towards Spawn. They're both covered up by a smoke. This is actually a huge opportunity for Fusion. They've isolated Nismo and they've gotten the kill. The 2 players all the way from Spawn, they can still come up from behind, but Fusion still have their eye on it. It's all on Qualinoobs. Qualinoobs, the only one really here to hold it down. He's only held down 1, but not able to do it again. EU popping out from Spawn, and a Molly right on top of the bomb too. Does everything here for M80. They continue their scoreline once again. Could they cut down the rifle? Yes, they do.
Not putting every single player towards A main, which a lot of teams will do when they have that orbital strike and Molly combo. They put EU on a flank. They had Quanoob sitting on site. Knowing that Fusion were more than likely going to make that aggressive push in towards A main to try and punish that orbital strike, and you can see how it works. Instead of these players pushing these players back in A main, they're kind of sandwiched between 5 different players. 2 in the back spawn, Lurker and EU over towards defender spawn, and then Quanoob just in the middle site. So M80's awareness to not overplay that A main control working very well in their favor, and Fusion know that that double-digit mark is going to be a very difficult one to play against, especially with how that last round went and how their economy will certainly be sitting.
And it's tough to tell what the adjustment is here for Fusion because they've been going for quite a few reads in the last few rounds, putting on 3, 4 on one stack of the map, one side of the map. So M80 done a little bit better of a job terms of navigating some of those early round scenarios here on the attacking side. But again, we saw a lot of early pressure from the Union against this M80 team. This M80 team has a lot more breathing room right now, and they're pretty much using it to their full advantage. I mean, you can see it in how they're scaling right now. Koala Noob already getting into a prime position without really using too much utility, and he could just double satchel right into a plant position.
And there's some basic just like protocols that M80 are doing that we didn't see yesterday. Like you said, it's not that the fact that Koala Noob is just dashing up dry. They're using good util. Like, they're just dropping an aftershock to help Koala Noob in his entry. Nismo's as well, tossing a very quick fault line. A lot of pieces of util that are rechargeable. This Fusion. This is a big round. They get reset here if they lose this. They will have a lot of ultimates to work with, regardless of the result.
They do have an opportunity. Potentially recharge some of those ultis in this round. They're actually keeping an eye out for the ult orb over in Arcade, but they're just walking right into the crosshair, potentially, of Koala Noob. What a track through the wall. But he still goes down to the trade of Verdi. Good swing from Verdi. The M80. Actually going straight to where this team is weakest.
Now they're coming back to deny the ult orb because they know how close Fusion are to a lot of them. They definitely don't want Meathead or Theory to get his.
Launching smoke.
Gonna be a little bit of an answer here, but Meathead does not have realistically any util to try to hold this back. Verdi, however, does. Nade alongside. Boombotted. Oh, wow. Orbital strike right from behind the smoke to actually cover up any sort of cross, and Verdi does go down to the swing as Xander. Meathead trying to make his way out of the site, and indeed he does so. But this is an even scenario for Fusion.
Edu can't deny this here. EU will try and back away to play this Hunter's Fury. It looks like Xander's kind of on an island. Xander gets caught out because of it.
And now these last two players are going to be fully spotted. They know exactly where these last two players are. EU and Nismo held up in tower. EU, the one with the ultimate, is the one who swings. And Nismo, however, couldn't capitalize to try to make this one a little bit more dramatic. Theory instead goes for the defuse, and Fusion are still in this map.
It's Edu's flank that finds the last 3 kills. Again, Xander just stuck on an island. But both teams playing very wary of each other's ultimates. Like you can see, M80 probably had a protocol going into this round, like, hey, they're really close to a lot of ultimates. If one of them gets a kill, if one of them gets an ult orb, do not overcommit.
It's the opportunity to isolate a kill or two.
That popped his ultimate, and both players stayed in towards tower. But that kind of slight delay from Verdi allowed a flank like that from Edu to come in such a timely fashion. And so Fusion, with those ultimates, only using 2 of them, keep themselves in this game entirely. That was a round that would have reset them.
And instead, it's left M80 in the dust. Oh my goodness. Koala Noob, however, you leave him with the knives and he can absolutely rake. There's still a couple more to go, and it's Theory actually with the spray transfer getting 2, but M80 come out of it on top. Here comes Darker.
Keeping them in the round here. Darker just swinging in off of the play from Theory.
Now Darker's doing the same. He keeps Fusion in the round. It's a 2v2. Darker still has a whole lot of util.
Nismo with the Rolling Thunder here.
So what does that do?
EU can play in a position where he can definitely use these double shocks if he wants.
Still double Prowler for Edu, but they're not clearing these angles. Edu stepping on up. Darker's ran out of util. They still have Nismo to deal with, but again, that Rolling Thunder could come out at any point. In Darker, he opts to go for the lurk back, for the flank back on the player in tower, but instead now Nismo, EU, should have the victory formation at the end, and indeed they do.
Very quickly clapping back his M80. There was a play to try and crunch Nismo from using that Rolling Thunder towards tower, but Nismo, I think understanding he was kind of a rat getting trapped in a corner, just isolating one singular fight before they could approach him. And there's a lot of post-play util left for M80, so it felt pretty confident, but a fast play from M80 towards that B site with Koala Noob opening up with knives, and a Hunter Siri as well to allow Koala Noob really nice pathing over towards Jenny where he could find a little bit more, and he did. He found a second. So Fusion, they will now be reset here. They have some ultimates to work with, and we'll see if they can replicate M80's Swifty success, and maybe if they can continue theirs.
It'll be so tough to really make these ultimates really worth it, but Meathead's in a great position to try to utilize it. The stun into to try to cover up tower, and Meathead actually peeks out at the same time. The orbital strike was such a good idea. But again, it was a Hail Mary. They just threw it out there just to see if it worked.
And if only Darker had that Rolling Thunder, that would have been an entirely different play. Koala Noob dashing away, Xander just hopping out of it. And now Fusion, they know the stakes of this round. They don't have that orbital strike to play with. They will guaranteed have the lockdown and the rolling thunder though. So there's some major ultimates that we'll have to look out for in this next round. But look at M80 giving no space to this Fusion team.
They have the crossfires. They even have the anti-flash. The first contact up. There goes the flash, and there goes the peak. It's Nismo in. Koala Noob and EU all getting kills. A Zenny flawless. As M80 are one away from finally winning their first map on the international stage.
We'll see how M80 will play off of the fact that they're one away from this lockdown. They've called the timeout here, I think, to prepare for these ultimates. Same thing to see if they want to try and get John QT onto his. A very well-timed timeout here for M80, as they will take a second to breathe, figure things out. Again, those ultimates coming online will be very critical for both these teams. And a round like this, we're going to guaranteed see some crazy set piece between M80 and Fusion, both teams that love to play around these ultimates. On a map like Fracture, we've seen really nice set pieces, specifically from that M80 Union game. We didn't see the full strat book from M80, but this is a round where we'll probably see them adapt and work off of their ultimates, set Koala Noob up in some kind of aggressive position. And for Fusion, it's the same thing. How are they going to use it as well to slow down the play from from just M80 as a team?
Yep. Nothing exactly has been working out overwhelmingly for Fusion. Not like M80 are realistically making their jobs any better. We didn't see too many fakes come out from the Fusion side. Coming back in towards B. Once they actually exec into A, but M80, in terms of their ulti play, every time that they do get that stack of ultimates, it's essentially been a free round for them. Now going on into the next is a big round for Fusion. In terms of the ultimates, Rolling Thunder alongside the lockdown. Try to hold it down for Fusion. They have 4 players on the A side of the map. They're looking to crunch down on 3.
And look at this Rolling Thunder set up from Darker. Maybe it's just a fault line here for now to force these players back, and that's a great way to get the control for themselves, denying John QT the space. But now they're looking for where he might go for the ult or elsewhere. They were thinking it was A main, but instead he's lurked actually back towards B.
And it's an instant reposition from pretty much everyone in Fusion. All 5 are contemplating it.
We've seen plays where the ult gets pushed into a KJ, and you have Nismo in that Rolling Thunder that could definitely send players his direction to John QT.
Oh, Darker, he just gets one clean through the smoke. That's Koala Noob gone. That's the pop potential gone. And dude taking down the flank too. M80 now starting to panic.
Retake here from Fusion. They have the Rolling Thunder. They have the lockdown. They're playing pretty dang confident here right now.
They can get John QT in a beautiful position though for this lockdown.
And the thing is, the Q is the M80 ult. If they want to push spawn, knowing that Fusion playing retake, you just pop one back.
John QT gets very, very close before the smoke ends up going in.
30 seconds left. You might pop the ult here now,
30
Fusion.
seconds left.
No ults are being popped, period, for either team. And Fusion doesn't ring it out, instead utilizing the nade in. There goes the Rolling Thunder going into spawn, and there finally goes the ultimate coming in from Fusion too, but EU, he ends up capitalizing and catching in too. Man advantage for M80, and the lockdown's going in at the same time. It's gonna leave Fusion running for the hills, and Nismo collecting yet another one. Great pressure for M80, sending Fusion scrambling in the middle of their hold. And Nismo and EU snack down the last 2, and M80 finally have their win on land.
And this one looks a lot cleaner from M80. Certainly a more refined look. You can see in the last round just how heavy they're playing into those ultimates and trying to work off of the fact that Fusion have got theirs. M80, their first win on the international stage. How they did it, our analyst desk will have the answers here in just a second.
Well, as we see, it's finally the win for M80 that we all anticipated, because the team came in with so much hype from the North American audience, and that's partially us. You know, we definitely have sold the narrative that M80 was a really good team, and they struggled yesterday, but they seem to have found stability here in a LAN environment as they pick up the dub here in map number 1. But it is a best of 3, so it's not over yet. And also important to note, again, this is a group stage that is very forgiving, as the victors do get an advantage, but the 2 and 3 teams will still be making it into the playoffs to compete when things really get interesting in the bracket play. But M80 looking good on Fracture, and I feel like this is the M80 we wanted to see yesterday, and we just never got to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, In the first round or the first half, there was like 9 rounds they've gotten, and it was 3 of them that were diffuses for M80. So I like the little change that you have from M80 from yesterday to today, where from what I noticed from the playstyle was that they just wanted to be a little bit more aggressive, do a little bit more of these wide swing and trap plays, not necessarily over committing on pushes, but doing just very good to combine like a fault line and a recon dart just to swing out and get a lot of these swing kills. And they swung with confidence and they took the best out of it. And you see it from these examples right here. I think where they actually fell a little bit was when Fusion finally wanted to work a couple of flanks here and there on those swings that M80 were doing that capitalized at least on like 1 round.
Yeah, and the rounds that Fusion did win on their attacking side were thrifty rounds. 2 thrifty rounds. They were able to isolate where John QT plays, and that's good on the thrifty round because he's a killjoy, so he's probably going to be by himself, right? So the way that they played their thrifties were beautiful, but also what really stood out for me from watching both teams were the breaches on both teams.
Yeah.
I thought Nismo and Darker did a beautiful job on utilizing their fault line, and I think Nismo in particular on the defense side, the timing of the fault line was just impeccable. His teammates were able to isolate the people that were stunned, and they were just ready for it on the defense side. And then also Darker, and that's one of the rounds where they won the thrifty round. Was Darker was able to get everybody stunned, secure the round, close it out, and honestly, I thought Fusion played pretty well, but this is a much better M80 that we saw today.
And like I said, it's also a better results that you see here. A 13-7 loss for Fusion when they lost 13-2 against 9Z on a map that are usually very, very strong. So it's nice that they're able to get those thrifty rounds to make it possible here, at least for Fusion to have somewhat of a competition here against M80. But also what I like from a cherry on top from M80's final round that they won was having 2 players playing just outside of that smoke to kill the rotators coming back there from Fusion. So learning a little bit of what the Brazilian side of the Union was doing against them, and they played that to perfection in the end.
Also, big heal here for M80 to win some pistols. You know, they were struggling yesterday in the pistols with Union. I think they won 1 out of 4. So definitely wasn't really going to help them out at all. And also, there's a statistic we don't always talk about it that much because sometimes I feel like it is maybe a little bit easy to manipulate the narrative. But the cast percentages yesterday for M80 versus the Union, you had players who were really struggling to find their own on Fracture. I'm looking at Koala Noob, who had 55%. Nismo should be much higher as well. He's also at 55%, 40% for John QT in that game against the Union. Here, it feels like the team was playing more to the way they play, and they all were kind of hitting a number that makes more sense. You know, you've got 80%, 70%, 70%, numbers that we would normally see from this team.
And just to tie into what Emily was saying before of how good those breaches are playing, like Darker being one of those players that we highlighted, being the support cast around Verdi. Yes, he's 10-18, but they still came out with 15 assists there to the game, onto Nismo's 12 on M80 side. So yes, it's not only those flashes, and even on top of that, those fault lines don't always come into account in terms of assists, but those 2 breaches, just to reiterate what you just mentioned, Emily, have been on point this match.
Yeah, and even looking at the Sova EU 21-10, there was some really cool Hunter's Fury plays that I saw that they were doing. On the defense side, they did a stun long B play where he instantly popped his ult. That round was super quick. I think they got 3 or 4 with that. And even on the attacking side, they did the same thing where Koala went in through generator, and then there was a Sova ult there, just really being very explosive with this, and that was very exciting to see. EU played beautiful on Sova too.
And EU getting a better start here definitely bodes well for M80. He didn't really have the greatest time on Fracture yesterday, but this is a best of 3, and map 2 is right around the corner. But first, a quick break, and then we'll jump into map number 2.